Ms. Leaf, in May 2012, President Obama issued Executive Order 13611, blocking property of persons threatening the peace, security, or stability of Yemen. This gave the Treasury Department authority to freeze U.S.-based assets of anyone deemed to be obstructing the political transition in Yemen or who is engaged in activity that threatens Yemen's security or political stability. Yet, I believe that no individual or entity has yet been sanctioned under Executive Order 13611. And will sanctions now be considered as we see some obstruction taking place once again in Yemen? How effective has this tool been if we have not yet used it? And do you believe that it could be effective in helping to create a stable environment for the political transition to proceed? And I'll continue, and then I'll let you answer if you could. It is clear that the economic situation in Yemen is rapidly deteriorating. Yemen relies heavily on foreign assistance from neighboring countries in the Gulf, most notably its neighbor to the north, Saudi Arabia, but also the United States. However, late last month, Saudi Arabia said that it would halt its aid to Yemen, and to make matters worse, it has been deporting Yemeni workers from Saudi Arabia by the tens of thousands. You testified that we will continue to work with our international partners to provide the incentives and support Yemen in carrying out what we hope will be its reform agenda. What incentives are we providing? Have we been using our leverage with the GCC to get them to provide much more of the needed development assistance for Yemen? And in fiscal year 2011 and 2012, Yemen received about $27 million in economic support funds. In fiscal year 2013, State requested $38 million, and now in fiscal year 2014, you have requested $45 million. What's the justification for this increase in ESF funds, and what kinds of programs do we want to implement or augment with that additional money? What kind of return on investment are we seeing with all of our assistance to Yemen? Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you for that set of questions. First, to the issue of sanctions, whether they be bilateral sanctions or UN-based sanctions. I would say that at this point, we're closely evaluating the situation and whether there is a need to go forward with anything specific at this time. We're in very close and constant touch with the government, with President Hadi himself. I met with him a week ago during my visit, and we went over the proximate set of obstacles to concluding this phase of the transition, which means wrapping up the dialogue. I think we're going to evaluate carefully before we move. We have a number of tools obviously available, and we've been in discussion with what we call the Group of 10 ambassadors, missions in Sana'a as well as partner countries. I stopped in Riyadh on the way home from Sana'a to discuss these issues. We want to allow President Hadi and those who are running the national dialogue to take the steps that they want to do, not get out in front of them, but be ready to act as needed. So we are in a process of evaluating exactly this right now. I would say while there is a degree of obstructionism by former regime elements, there are also genuine political issues at play right now that have to be resolved. They mostly relate to the North-South divide and the issues as to how a future state set of structures will be elaborated. So there are legitimate political issues that need to be finessed, and then there is also elements of what I would call possible obstructionism. Now, whether they are enough to block the conclusion of this phase is yet to be determined. But we will be ready to assist President Hadi all along the way in this, because it is a critical first step, and this step will then take us to the next, or take Yemen to the next. On the issue of economic assistance, of course, Saudi Arabia is by far the largest donor of the group of donor countries. The GCC as a bloc have pledged something on the order of $4.4 billion, and of that, Saudi funds are $3.25. There have been ongoing discussions among donors and with the Yemeni government, both on a bilateral basis and in other groups such as the Friends of Yemen, about how the Yemeni government can best leverage those funds. To put it politely, there's endemic corruption and a certain large dysfunctionality in Yemeni governance that goes back three decades. Donors naturally want a fair degree of accountability so that their funding goes against the areas of need. We have, as donors, set up, and the World Bank helped craft this approach, what we call a mutual accountability framework, an executive board that is going to be the liaison between Yemeni government and donors to ensure that the funding can flow, and the funding can flow directly to the needs defined. So that was one of the issues that I discussed both with the government as well as with the donor community in Sana'a.
Now, let me just interrupt you a second because I had another question. With the Bahrain Independent Commission of Inquiry, they had made 26 recommendations. Have the government implemented those? And that's dealing with the investigation and reporting of a pro-democracy protest that took place between February and March of 2011. What can you tell?
We issued a report, a sort of a report card, if you will, in August on the sort of the state of play on BICI recommendations, and I would say it's a mixed bag. The main shortcomings are in accountability for abuses, excesses committed by security forces during the unrest. Obviously, there are some structural reforms that need to be tackled, and I think it's fair to say the government is beginning those, is putting those steps in place. But accountability, they have certainly fallen short, and that is something that we have raised regularly with the government. I met with the new ombudsman this summer. He has started work pretty energetically, he and his team. This is a piece of structural reform that I think will be essentially help in the accountability piece.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mr. Deutsch is recognized.